what strikes me is that he lived outside of the box. He actually created his own box. And as performers and entrepreneurs and whatever it is that you do, that is a good way to view your career, view your life, to not live defined by anyone else's rules, creating your own rules. And certainly as creatives, you have to do that. We have to do other things other than just sitting around waiting for work. And so that's what he represents for me, someone who defined his own box and then jumped up out of it every once in a while.
You have to put Gordon in a historical context, and we have to realize the types of, he was the first to do so many things. He was the first. He was the first African American to work for a major magazine. He was the first to go to Paris and shoot fashion at that time. In fact, an African American man shooting fashion in Paris, and then hanging out with the Tuskegee Airmen, and being a photojournalist, as an artist. He was the first to direct a movie that was backed by a studio, which was in the 70s, which is kind of crazy, like it took us that long to get a studio to back one of our films. So, it's not so much what he says to me as an actor, it's what he says to me as a pioneer. And he's motivated me to try and be a pioneer in various ways. He was first and foremost the true meaning of a Renaissance man, and I humbly try to fashion my career in a similar manner.
Gordon Parks serves as an example for so many black filmmakers. Like Eric said, he is a pioneer, when I was at NYU, there was I had an opportunity to meet him. They did a whole symposium on African-American, Pan-African film, and they brought filmmakers from all over the world to come and speak and do lectures. And Gordon Parks is one of them. And, he made a lot of great accomplishments, but in a lot of instances, he was set up to fail. I don't know if people realize, it's a great accomplishment to write, produce, direct, do the score for Learning Tree, but that was really against all odds proposition. I don't think the studio really wanted him to be successful at it, and that's something he says in a lot of interviews, like he was being set up to fail, but because he had that mentality, that drive, he's a true Renaissance man. He overcame it and made a classic, and a lot of his films aren't necessarily generally available to the public. Lead Belly, well, Shaft obviously is. That's a landmark work. But every time he made a film, it was a landmark piece of work. Well, maybe not Super Cops. Not sure why he did that. Not sure why he did Super Cops. But maybe that was to prove a point that he could make a film without black actors, and as that is a success. But yeah, he, Melvin Van Peebles, they opened the door for a lot of opportunities in Hollywood to prove that there was a market for films, and everything that he does needs to be respected and studied because it's just superior craftsmanship.
Since you're our Philly guy, did he inspire you to do what you do and give you courage to just step out?
Absolutely. I would say being a Philly guy, Bill Cosby was my guy. But when I met Gordon Parks and I had an opportunity to study his work and seek it out, it definitely shows. Well, actually, to be honest with you, when I saw Learning Tree, I was like, okay, this is not where I'm coming from, because the guy that I'm rooting for is actually the villain in the movie. It's the guy that stands up against the system is the guy that ends up getting punished. And the Gordon Parks character is sort of the Martin Luther King kind of guy who kind of stands his ground and is very well-meaning. Keep in mind the book and the movie were made before the assassination of Dr. King. So Gordon Parks changes his step as well as the films come in, and then you have Shaft come in. So, yeah, if you look at Gordon Parks' body of work, there are lessons to be learned, and I'm a big student of his, yes.
Joseph?
Well, for me, I really was not really impressed, or it's not impressed, but I wasn't influenced by his filmmaking. I was more influenced by his cultural sort of impact on our society.
What he captured.
What he captured, but you know, when Shaft came out, I was like 7 years old, and you know, we all heard that song, "Who's the Man?" You know, Shaft, John Shaft. I mean, that sort of culture.
Yeah, I didn't know y'all were gonna have some music today.
That sort
That
of cultural impact that he had on my life, and the fact that he created an anti-hero, a guy that was cool, that was not quite perfect, but he also was a really hip dude. You know what I mean? You didn't see that at first. It was the first time that you saw African American male just really hip and cool and powerful. That impressed me. I mean, that was what you know. You saw it on the radio. You heard it on the radio. Everyone was talking about it. So that cultural impact is what mostly impressed me about Gordon Parks. But I mean, one thing that I think some of us miss is that here's a man who didn't graduate from high school. I mean, he was a high school dropout, and he did all of these phenomenal things by his sheer will, by his ability to navigate such a difficult and bumpy and negative world, and to be successful. And here we are standing here calling him a Renaissance man, and he didn't graduate from high school. And that to me is quite impressive.
Was that the most shocking thing when you interviewed him?
It was incredibly shocking. But then when I found out he played piano in a brothel, that was even crazier. So that was.
We won't go down that road.
I'm just saying, he did. I mean.